Well, good afternoon. My name is Brian Lawley. I'm the Director of Macintosh Development Tools at Symantec. And today we're going to be telling you about what we've been up to with our C++ and Java Development Tools products. I'm going to start off by giving you a very quick review of what we've shipped this year. And then from there, give you a sense of what we're doing with C++ moving forward. I'll have some people come up and do some hot demos of C++ for you. And then we'll talk a bit about Java, show you our hot new Cafe product, and then also show you our next generation rapid application development environment, codenamed Surf Ninja. This year the team's been really busy. We've actually shipped 6 versions of C++ in all. We started off with version 8.0 last February. And as most of you know, 8.0 has a very robust feature set. In fact, many of the features in 8.0 are not available in any other competitive products today. We have very fast PowerPC native compilers, a next generation project manager that supports things like drag and drop, column sorting, nested subfolders, things like that. A next generation class browser, advanced editor. Of course, we fully support Apple events and Apple scripts, so you can essentially record anything you do in the environment and play it back. Full double byte support. In fact, we have #1 market share in Japan because our product is fully localized there. The visual architect for graphically generating your user interface and then having it generate the corresponding C++ code. And also live expression evaluation, so you don't have to recompile to find out what your function calls are going to return. So that was a pretty good base to build on, and we got a lot of good feedback from it, and we came out with 2 major releases since then. The first is C++ Release 4. And one of the things we heard from developers was, if you're going to go native, if you're going to take your application native, you want to squeeze every single ounce of performance out of it that you possibly can. So we knew that the best way to get this performance boost was to team up with Apple Computer. So we actually bundle in Apple's Mr. C compiler. We've been bundling this since last October, and we actually share the same front end. So you as a developer, you can develop your code, compile it very quickly with our native Symantec compiler, and then as a last step, go to Mr. C and get up to 22% performance increases. After all, what's the point of going native if your code isn't going to run really fast? Now, we also made improvements to the debugger. We added MPW Res, MPW PowerPC Assembler, if you want to really fine-tune your code to make it run quick. Exception handling, RTTI, and of course support for OpenDoc, as OpenDoc was nearing its final version. Following that, in March, we came out with C++ for Power Mac Release 5. We did a couple of things there. We significantly reduced the memory requirements on it, added drag and drop support in the editor, boosted the performance, added 68K CFM support, and in fact that's one of the big advantages of our product is from within the same project file you can build both 68K and PowerPC applications. So you don't have to synchronize source code, you can just flip a switch, go between option sets and target different processors. We also shipped our Caffeine Java tools, reduced the project size, added an installer and Apple Guide tutorials. And because our environment is open, we're able to drop in other languages and compilers very quickly and easily. So we teamed up with a company named Language Systems to provide a PowerPC Pascal compiler for older Think Pascal customers to give them a transition story to PowerPC. We also worked with Motorola to make sure that their compiler would plug into our environment, and today you can simply purchase their compiler, drop it in a folder, and it shows up as a preference inside of our environment. And of course, final OpenDoc support in Release 5 was also shipped. But we knew just making a better product wasn't going to do it. We knew we also needed to really beef up our infrastructure and give you the other things that you need to succeed. So with Release 4, we announced that the product was going to be a subscription product from now on. Simply buy the product, send in your registration card, and we'll send you the next 2 CDs for free. We've more than doubled our tech support staff, and we have a really first-rate staff now. We've got 11 guys up in Eugene, Oregon. We also now offer online support via AOL, CompuServe, the internet. And as a bonus to all of our existing customers who'd bought into the 8.0 product, when we announced the CD subscription program, we sent them 2 updates for free automatically. If you haven't tried our tools, we also offer them at a great trade-up price. So if you have any other Macintosh development tools, you can try them out for just $149.95 for the full product. Now with that, I'm going to bring up our Macintosh evangelist, Will Iverson. And before Will gets started, I've actually brought something along to make sure that Will's pumped up for the demo. And what Will's going to be showing you is C++ Release 5 on Mountain Dew.
Thanks, Brian. Well, I'm going to show you some of the new stuff in Release 5. Probably the most significant thing that we've done is integrated in 68K and PowerPC. Here's a 68K, and you can see with just an easy pop-up menu, I can navigate between doing builds for optimized PowerPC, Mr. C, and PowerPC debugging, or whatever I want to set. I can configure that however I want. I'm going to go ahead and remove the objects for the 68K and build the application. I'm going to go through the entire process of building a fat binary right now. You notice the compile dialog just came up. I can go ahead and flip back into my IDE and keep working, bring up an editing pane if I want to or whatever. I didn't have enough chance there before the dialog came up to save it. And so now I'm going to go ahead and run this just to take a look at my app. And here you can see me flying along earlier. You saw me doing the same thing during Mr. Nassi's presentation. And you can see up in the corner I'm getting about 14 frames per second for this fractal demo, which is about what you'd expect considering how much math it's doing for 68K code. All I have to do now is simply flip a switch and go straight to the PowerPC optimized build and switch over to a PowerPC build. You'll notice that I have both PowerPC and 68K libraries in this project, and it's smart. The project manager is smart enough to only include the libraries that I need. I'm going to go ahead and run this now. The last thing I want to show you about the project manager is you'll notice this column over here to do for the check-in status. We have a full revision menu that lets you mount databases, check files in and out, and do all of your source control from within the IDE. You don't have to leave your IDE at all, or go to MPW to do any of your source control. And here you can see the same application running with our PowerPC optimizing compiler, getting about 46 frames per second. We could also rebuild this with Mr. C as well, and we'd see about a 10% performance gain in that.
So rather than having to go through like 10 different steps of trying to synchronize source code in multiple projects and so on, you can just target it all from the same one project file.
Absolutely. I'm going to show another project right now called Can You Bear It that the guy in our tech support group developed in about 2 weeks using the Think class library and Visual Architect. First thing I'd like to point out here is just that we have 2 project files open at the same time, and you can drag files back and forth between them. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the class browser now, just so you can see what we've had in the C++ environment. This has actually been in the product since February of last year. And you can see I can just simply double-click on code and take a look at, as well as the hierarchical display. Let's go ahead and run this. People ask us for serious business applications, so instead we decided that just show a little hangman game here. Could I have any guesses from the audience on a letter?
Yeah, now this is our way of testing what kind of mood you guys are in. If you're in a bad mood and you say the wrong letters, something bad will happen to the bear. And if you're in a good mood, you can save the bear. So someone yell out a letter. What's that, Q? Okay, we'll try Q.
E, Q.
Try to keep you from moving.
Another letter? Z, Z.
Charcoal.
What are you doing?
I told you we should have had the session in the morning.
Lighter fluid.
All right. So those are some of the features of Release 5, Brian.
Yeah, we won't show you exactly what happens to the bear in the end. We did ship it.
It's been shipping since
last October.
Yeah, 8.0 has been shipping since February.
Yeah, in fact, the application built as a FAT application, and all the source code and TCL stuff is on the CD.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little bit about Release 5. Quickly, I'll give you a sense of where we're going to go with C++ in the next year. Things that we're investigating for the next versions of C++, we have a very slick graphical class browser in the cafe environment that we can easily bring over to C++. You'll see us enhance our 68K support. We're looking at improving the TCL, and that's actually something we need feedback from you folks on as to which Apple technologies you want to see us really implement. Of course, Mac OS 8 support, and I'll get into that in the next slide. OpenDoc support, standard C++ libraries, namespaces, additional debugging features, bug fixes, and other enhancements. We're not going to try to provide everything in the world in our product. What we'd rather do is give you a really good C++ programming environment with the features that are most important to you. In terms of Mac OS 8, we've been working with Apple since the early days, since pre-DR0, and a lot of our feedback has been integrated into the product. We can run on Mac OS 8 today and build Mac OS 8 apps. In fact, we were running on DR0 within 1 day of having it. And in fact, we have a 2-machine debugger that's been running since January on it. Some of the things we're investigating for Copeland, and we haven't made specific decisions about what we're going to implement, are direct to SOM, either through our compiler or through Mr. C, 2-machine debugging, of course, thin class library support for the Mac OS 8 human interface features, and also making the entire environment Mac OS 8 savvy. Now with that, that sort of wraps up the C++ part, and now we're going to talk about Java. And I want to set the stage by telling you why we feel Java is so important on the Mac. We really firmly believe that over 50% of the people authoring for the web are going to be doing it on Macs. And that's one of the reasons why we have such a huge emphasis on the Mac side of our Java tools business. Symantec is the only cross-platform tools company who's licensed the Sun JDK for both Macintosh and Windows. We had a Windows product out about 2 or 3 months ago, because the JDK on Windows was ahead of the Mac JDK. And now, about a month ago, we came out with Café. We believe we have a real early lead and we have the best products on both platforms. And by the time we're done with this presentation, I will have hopefully convinced you that Café is the best Mac Java tool there is. We have a massive parallel team. In addition to C++, we also have the Café team, and we have the Surf Ninja team. So we're investing real heavily in Java because we think there's going to be a lot of growth. And our whole strategy is very simple. Be there early with the best tools, with features and functionality not available in other products. So why all this Java stuff? Well, we all know there's going to be a lot of growth there. We saw early on that Java very elegantly solves a lot of problems that programmers have been complaining about for years. Cross-platform, not having to deal with things like memory management. And the massive industry momentum that we saw early on was a real good indicator. You know, the fact that you couldn't go into a bookstore and buy a Java book because every time they put them on the shelf, they would literally be sold out within an hour. So that led us to do Café. Now, Café is designed so that if you're completely new to programming or you're a very advanced professional programmer, it has the set of tools that's right for you. If you're new, it has a whole bunch of learning materials. It actually teaches you the environment. We have an intro to Java programming. We have over 90 sample applets, so you can just open up the applets, tweak them a little bit, recompile them, and you've got a running applet for your web page. And it has the full Java language reference. So if you're switching from C++ or you're completely new to programming, all the learning tools that you need are there. But we also have the most advanced professional environment. We have a very, very powerful project manager that supports nested subfolders, drag and drop, multiple option sets. We actually have built-in source control, so you don't have to go and purchase a separate source control product. And also make status. Of course, we have a very good Java and HTML source code editor that does automatic syntax highlighting, drag and drop. It's fully scriptable, has multiple split panes, and so on. We also have a unique feature in our product called Café Studio. And what Café Studio lets you do is visually draw your applet on screen and then have Café generate the corresponding Java code. And we'll show that in the demos. We also have a native Symantec Java compiler. This runs 3 to 5 times faster than the Sun compiler. There's nothing worse than doing programming and having to wait around for your compiler to finish compiling your code. And you'll see ours is very, very fast. And it's also completely verified to be Java compatible, so you can be sure that your applets will run across multiple platforms correctly. We have an awesome graphical browser, and we'll show you that in the demos as well. And additionally, because of the nature of the Java market, we didn't believe that a CD subscription program was going to be the right thing to do for this product. I mean, the JDK gets updated every few weeks. And if you had to wait for us to integrate that and then put together a CD and mail it out to you every 3 or 4 months, you'd constantly be behind. So what we did was we set up a very innovative new way to get stuff to you, and that is an update center. When you buy Cafe, you get a username and an ID, and that gives you 1 year of access to the update center. And so when we have a new version or a patch or a bug fix, you can get it just like that. You don't have to wait 3 or 4 months for a CD to show up in your mailbox. Some applause. Now additionally, you can also purchase the product straight off our website. You don't even have to go to your favorite retail software store. You can just type in your credit card number and name, and you get a username and ID, and you can buy it right there. In addition to Cafe Release 1, we're also announcing at the show Cafe Release 2. Next week, we're going to be making most of the features on this slide available. One of the biggest challenges with Java is it doesn't run fast enough. So we've been working really hard on a lightning fast just-in-time compiler. In fact, we've seen results already without fully optimizing the JIT, where it runs about 14 or 15 times faster than the standard virtual machine. And we'll show you a pretty compelling example today. Release 2 also has 68K support, lots of bug fixes, the latest version of the JDK. We'll also put our Apple Guide tutorials up online. We were not able to get source level debugging in for next week. Initially that was our target and that's what we promised. Rather than shipping the debugging before it was ready, I made the decision to hold it off another week or two. We don't want to put anything in your hands that's not really, really good quality that you can rely on to do production quality work. So expect to see Release 2 next week. It's free for all Release 1 customers. If you buy the product here, you can get it as well directly online. Now with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Will, and he's going to show you Cafe Release 1 and also our awesome JIT.
Great, thanks Brian. The first thing I'm working with right now is a component of Cafe called Cafe Studio, which is basically a visual form designer. I'm working on a registration form. I'm going to go ahead and drag in some objects. You can see we support all the Mac OS features like drag and drop. I'm going to go in a little bit more detail here, and I'm going to double click on this, and you can see that I've entered in some code for when this object is clicked. I can go up to the object palette and add another tool, add another button that is, and set it to be a cancel button, and change the font to be a dialog font in 12 points so it looks like a regular Mac button. I can go ahead and save, and it's actually generating all the Java source code. So let's go ahead and take a look at what it just generated. And here back in the IDE itself, you can see the source code for this. And here's our editor, and you can see all the source code that it generated for you, which would have taken quite some time to have written by hand. And we support all the features like drag and drop and other things that you would expect in an advanced editor, split pane support, that sort of thing. The next thing I'm going to go ahead and show you is the browser. We have a very compelling browser. You can see over here the full hierarchy displayed. And I can configure this browser however I want to. I can do type ahead. Let me go ahead and put the registration at the top here. And here you can see the function calls and the data. I can double click and see my source code. So this is the code. This is my code here. Now I might be curious about something a little higher up on the hierarchy, like the applet. And I can just double click, and it's going to launch Navigator directly from there and take me straight to the documentation.
So rather than having to go through multiple steps, I can just double click on a class file, get straight to the documentation, and learn it real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yes, absolutely. We figure most people are going to have Navigator open most of the time when they're doing work anyways.
Navigator seems to be the browser of choice right now on the Mac.
And I can configure this to show, to simplify the display if I want to. And it still supports type ahead as I do my work here. I'm going to go ahead and run this quickly just so you can see the form build. And you'll notice the compiler. I'm going to go ahead and show you a little bit more about the compiler in just a minute here. And there's the application I just developed with Cafe Studio. We have quite a number of projects that we include with Cafe. You can see the Intro to Java Programming here with all the sample examples on everything from how to do buttons, menu bars, testing, standalone apps, what have you. A whole raft of Symantec demos, and also the JDK demos. I'm going to show one of my favorites, which is the Molecule Viewer. And here you can see this. Here you can see the project for that. I'm going to go to my project options now and scroll down. And for some reason, I'm going to go ahead and try using the Sun compiler. The Sun compiler is actually running interpreted. I'm going to go ahead and hit Bring Up to Date. It's running interpreted on top of the Java VM from within our IDE. And you can see it's building at a reasonable pace, but not exactly an instantaneous turnaround. I'm going to go to the project options now and switch back to the Symantec compiler. The Java-compatible logo on the box means that it produces the identical bytecode, and you can see that it built quite a bit faster. And I can go ahead and hit run and take a look at my applet. Here you can see a ball that's actually being rendered as I rotate. You can see that the balls, as I bring the ball around, come out and the lighting changes as the fog, from the fog. This is an example of sort of a mathematically intensive Java applet. And you can see that the performance here with the standard VM isn't too bad. I'm going to go ahead and show you a new feature in release 2, which is our JIT.
How many people here know what a JIT is? Show of hands? About half. Why don't we do a 10-second explanation?
A JIT stands for Just-in-Time Compiler. I assume most of you are familiar with the product from Connectix called Speed Doubler, or also the differences between the new 68K emulator and the PCI machines versus the original emulator. I'm going to go ahead and drop this onto the standard applet viewer first.
So what a JIT is basically it's taking the code, and instead of running it on a standard virtual machine, it's on the fly interpreting it to native platform code, so it really, really goes fast.
So here you can see the applet running, and you'll notice that as it gets to the more mathematically intensive parts of this fractal, it slows down to the point where you can actually watch it drawing each pixel. And that's because every time that the interpreter runs through the code, it's reinterpreting every bytecode without remembering the fact that it just did that.
So this is an 8500 120. So it's a pretty fast machine, but if you were to pull up a Java applet and it ran at this speed, you'd probably get pretty frustrated very quickly. That's one of the reasons why a JIT is so important.
Here you can see that this drawing took 34 seconds to complete. I'm going to go ahead and quit out of the applet viewer, drop it on the same applet viewer running with the JIT. And here you can see, because it's cached the native code, it just chews right through that fractal. And that only took 9 seconds, 8 seconds actually.
Now, there have been rumors about all kinds of JITs in the Macintosh community. We want to let you know that this JIT is available next week.
Thank you.
Now with that, we think we really have the best set of Java tools available today on the Mac. We have a number of features that our competitors don't have: Cafe Studio, the just-in-time compiler, the Symantec native compiler, full AppleScript support, lots of great tutorials. But if you're not convinced, we want to give you a compelling way to try out Symantec Cafe. So we're introducing it for 90 days at an introductory price of just $99. So if you're doing Java development, pick up a copy, check it out, see what you think. In fact, you can buy it right down the hall at Apta and Mac Tech for $99.95, or you can go straight to our website and purchase it. Now we're going to get into the next generation of Java. Cafe is a pretty good set of tools for the way tools are today. But Java is still programming. It's still challenging to create code. And we think it's really time to change the rules. At the beginning of the conference, Guy Kawasaki gave the analogy of the guys who brought ice down from the North Pole. And that's sort of what command line programming was all about initially, in a command line environment. And then there were the guys who learned how to freeze ice in every city. And the first guys went out of business, and the second guys made lots of money. And that's sort of analogous to the project manager style that we're in right now. But what we want to do is completely change it, and we want to bring sort of the refrigerator age, if you will. And what we're going to do is launch a rapid application development environment on the Macintosh and also on Windows. And it's codenamed Surf Ninja. What we'll be showing you today is a technology preview. We haven't announced details of what the product will be named, what it will be priced, etc. We will tell you that it's going to ship by the end of summer, early fall. And we'll also tell you that we have a completely separate team working on this in parallel. Our goal is simple: get to market early with great features and functionality and beat our competitors, and give you great tools to do Java development early on in the process. So with that, what I'm going to do is turn it over to the team leader for the Surf Ninja project. His name is Rod Magnuson.
you too.
And I've also brought him some Mountain Dew.
Thank you, Brian. The Ninja team was set up to bring development tools, or visual tools, excuse me, to the Macintosh. I'm not going to drink that right now. I have enough in me. Currently, we're working on Surf Ninja, a visual Java development tool. The question you're going to be asking yourself is, what's so visual? The first thing that is going to be obvious is that instead of manipulating files, we actually manipulate the classes and objects within the files. So what the environment actually does when you add a file is parse the contents and determine the classes, objects, their hierarchy, as well as their properties and events. These objects have properties and events I just mentioned. An example of a property for a menu item would be the label of the menu item. So what you actually see is you click in the menu. And an event for the menu item would be the action event. Java calls this the action event, so that's actually what is generated as you select the menu item. We also implement something known as two-way development. And this means that as you manipulate the visual representation of an object, the source for the object actually changes. And if you manipulate the source for the object, the visual representation of the object changes. As you might imagine, we have numerous visual editors, two of which are the form editor and the menu bar editor. Out of the box, we ship with numerous pre-built components that you can drag and drop into your projects to add instant functionality. The object library, we have an object library that contains all the components available, as well as a tool palette that can be used to store frequently used components. We have standard Java components. Those of you familiar with the Java libraries would know these as the AWT components. These are things such as buttons, lists, checkboxes, radio buttons, et cetera, et cetera. In addition to these, we provide components to facilitate web page development. These would be things like animated buttons, et cetera, anything you would expect from a Java-enhanced web page. As well as intranet development, we also want to, as well as internet development, we also want to facilitate intranet development. So we provide things like spreadsheet tools and progress boxes. In addition to these components, we will also be providing database access components. So not only will you be able to click and drag a button into a form, but you will be able to click and drag a database connection into your applet or application. As well as using pre-built components, we also facilitate the creation of components. So if you're working on a special subclass of button or what have you, and you find that you use this constantly, you can drag that into the object library or tool palette, and we will make a component out of it so that you can use it in another project. You can do this with objects as well as projects. That's pretty much it. I want to go into a demo, so stay with me. Make sure I get my demo machine up. Okay, what we have here is Surf Ninja launched already, and I have it configured to open up an empty project. Down here is the object library. You can see there are a number of components already available, and the property list. I'll go over these a little more, but I'm going to start by going back into the Finder and opening a Java file I had previously written. And I'm going to add this into the project. And what you'll notice is, as I've added it, it's gone out and parsed it and basically taken all the information out of it and needed. You can see we have 3 classes here. If you look at the property list, you'll notice that the class for this is a frame, and a dialog, and yet another dialog. And you also notice there are a couple of buttons under the quit box, a label, a button, and a menu bar here. And you can see the hierarchy. There's a menu bar with three menus, and under that they have menu items, etc. So you notice we have the property list over here. This allows you to see all the properties of the object that's selected, and you can manipulate those. As well, we have the object library down here that contains all the components. Sort of already mentioned that one. Now I'm going to show off the menu editor, or the menu bar editor. So I'm going to open up the menu bar editor. We have a visual menu bar editor that is visual down to the desktop pattern. And this allows you to visually manipulate the menu bar, make hierarchical menus, not make hierarchical menus, etc. One thing I want to point out here is that as we're manipulating the hierarchy, the project window is also changing. And you can also come into the project window, let me get this so you can see it, and manipulate the hierarchy and the menu bar changes. Now this is all great because we actually have 3 windows actually working together to accomplish what we want to occur, what the task at hand here, editing the menu bar. But there's actually a third window that is actually also being updated, and that's the source code. So now as I manipulate this, you'll notice that the source is being instantly updated. And so this is what we're talking about when we talk about two-way development. I edit the visual representation of it, and it actually changes on the fly. Let me get this back so the Apple interface plates don't kill me. I'm going to close this down now and open up a new project that I've been working on, at least for the demo. And this is an applet. I'm going to open up the applet. You see now is a little progress dialog there saying initializing Java. What actually is running now is Java. What you can see up on your screen in the window is Java. So it doesn't look too apparent here, but we can move on. Now I've been working on a little component here, and I'm going to add this component. It's a nervous text component. Many of you may have seen the nervous text demo, into the toolbar, so I can store anything that I want to frequently use in the toolbar. I'm now going to double click on the toolbar, and it's going to add it to the form. And what you see now is Java running live. What this means is no longer will you be subclassing a component and not see the component in your visual editor. You will see everything. Java has layout managers to control the layout of things. You will be able to write custom layout managers, and there will be it is not possible to do this in a C implementation of a form editor. It's just impossible. The Java code for the layout managers actually controls where the components go. So that's what's happening here. Now I'm going to do one more thing, and I'm going to bind an event. I'm going to add an event to this button. So I'm going to double click. The code's going to come up, automatically put everything I need in, and I'm going to make it pause. It has a paused, I believe it's paused, variable here. Let me see this. Save that, update it. So basically, when I click on the button, I want it to pause it. So I'm using the not to. If it's true, change it to false. If it's false, change it to true. It's going to update, and I'm going to hide this and show this in Navigator so we can see that what you see is what you get. So we have the same thing running. I click toggle, it stops it. I click toggle again, and it starts it.
Cool.
Brian?
Now we have an extra 2 minutes. You want to try the Vermal?
No, thank you.
Okay. This was a technology preview. No guts, though. Let me go ahead and summarize what you've seen today. We showed you a lot about C++ and what we've been doing to improve the product and provide good support for you folks. With Release 4, the Mr. C compilers, performance enhancements, reduced memory requirements, our new subscription service, beefed up technical support. We're really trying to respond to the requests we've heard from you folks. We also showed you Cafe, the best set of Java development tools available on Macintosh. Feature-rich with things like Cafe Studio, the Symantec native Java compiler, full AppleScript support, a great project manager and editor, the just-in-time compiler, and a whole range of other things not available in any other product, and of course available for only $99. And finally, we showed you the whole next generation, where we're going with Surf Ninja and a rapid applet and application development environment. We are really, really focused on the Mac market. We have a huge team of people working on great Mac tools, and we're hoping to bring you along as our customers doing great Java development and great C++ development. Thanks for your time today, and we'll be up here. We'd love to answer questions after the session. Thanks.
We have some time. Actually, we have some time for some question and answer. We have about 5 minutes.